Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Some big Harry Potter news making the rounds at the moment. Over the past several months, Warner Bros. Has reportedly been exploring a potential sale due to significant corporate debt, with figures cited as high as $35 billion. Not sure how that happens when you own IP like Harry Potter, but it is what it is. Anyway, given the scale of Warner Bros. Portfolio, this information immediately attracted interest from major media companies. Initial reporting suggested that Netflix was in advanced discussions to acquire key Warner assets, particularly studio and streaming divisions. And for a brief period, it looked like Netflix may become the primary corporate owner of Warner Bros. However, the situation shifted when Paramount entered with a competing bid. Rather than pursuing selective divisions, Paramount reportedly made an offer to acquire the entirety of Warner Bros., including its film studios, television networks, streaming platforms, and intellectual property catalog. The figure widely reported for this bid was approximately $111 billion. And the biggest news here is that Netflix declined to increase its offer to match that valuation, which basically means Paramount will emerge as the winning bidder. I do need to make an important distinction, however. This was not a sale of the Harry Potter franchise in isolation. Instead, Harry Potter, along with HBO, DC Studios, Cartoon Network, and numerous other properties, would transfer ownership as part of a broader corporate acquisition. If finalized as described, this would represent one of the largest media consolidations in modern Hollywood history. And because Warner Bros. Controls the Wizarding World brand, this acquisition directly impacts the future of Harry Potter across film, television, streaming, and gaming. The next thing I want to clarify is what Paramount would control and what they wouldn't. If this acquisition proceeds as reported, Paramount would not simply gain access to a single franchise. It would acquire the entire Warner Bros. Entertainment structure. That includes Warner Bros. Pictures, HBO, HBO Max, DC Studios, Cartoon Network, New Line Cinema, Portkey Games, and the Wizarding World intellectual property. From a corporate standpoint, that means Paramount would become the parent company overseeing all film, television, streaming, and interactive content currently produced under Warner's umbrella. However, ownership of the studio is not the same thing as unrestricted control of the creative direction of every franchise within it, and this is where Harry Potter becomes more nuanced. Warner Bros. Has historically held the film and distribution rights to the Wizarding World, but J.K. Rowling didn't sell the IP outright in the same way George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney. Rowling retains contractual involvement in the franchise. Publicly available information indicates she maintains creative consultation rights, approval authority over major projects, executive producer involvement on adaptations. That means even if Paramount acquires Warner Bros., they would step into Warner's contractual relationship with Rowling, not replace it. In practical terms, Paramount would own the studio and the distribution machinery, but any new Wizarding World project would still require alignment with Rowling's contractual protections. So while Paramount could push for additional spin-offs, expanded series, new films beyond the original 7 books, or increased production frequency, they would not have unilateral authority to greenlight major projects without Rowling's involvement. And in my opinion, this distinction is critical. George Lucas losing control of his fandom was what led to its downfall. So as long as Rowling retains creative oversight, I don't think Harry Potter will run into the same issues. This acquisition only shifts corporate oversight and financial incentives, but doesn't automatically eliminate the creative guardrails that have existed since 1999. One of the most immediate areas affected by this acquisition would be streaming. Currently, HBO Max serves as the primary streaming home for the Harry Potter films in the United States, with licensing arrangements in other regions. If Paramount acquires Warner Bros., that would mean they also acquire HBO and HBO Max. At the same time, Paramount already operates its own streaming platform, Paramount Plus, and this creates an obvious structural question. There are only a few realistic scenarios. 1. Paramount could merge HBO Max into Paramount Plus, combining both libraries under a single service. Or 2. Paramount could maintain HBO Max as a premium brand but shift major IP, including Harry Potter and DC, to Paramount Plus to strengthen its flagship platform. As of now, Paramount Plus operates at a lower monthly price point than HBO Max. HBO Max is positioned as a premium tier service, and Netflix remains one of the most expensive major platforms. And if Paramount absorbs Warner's assets, you can bet there will be some pricing adjustments. Large acquisitions typically aim to maximize return on investment, and premium IP like Harry Potter becomes a central driver of subscriber growth. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the biggest question of all. What happens to the upcoming Harry Potter TV series? The most immediate concern for a lot of fans is the series. As it stands, the show has been developed under HBO. The project is structured as a long-form adaptation of the original 7 novels, with each season expected to cover 1 book. Production on Season 1 is already well underway, and plans for subsequent seasons have reportedly been outlined. The release window that has been discussed publicly is early 2027. Now the question is, does a corporate acquisition change any of that? The short answer is that it's highly unlikely. When a company acquires another studio, projects that are already deep into development, especially those tied to major intellectual property, are typically preserved. Cancelling a large-scale adaptation of one of the most valuable franchises in modern media would make no financial sense whatsoever. In fact, from Paramount's perspective, the Harry Potter series is likely one of the crown jewels of the acquisition. However, ownership transitions can introduce some creative variables. There are 2 realistic outcomes. 1, the series continues exactly as planned, with the same showrunners, production team, and creative direction. The only difference would be corporate oversight and potentially the streaming platform on which it releases. Or 2, Paramount could evaluate the project and choose to influence elements such as budget allocation, long-term franchise strategy, release pacing, or even creative leadership. This wouldn't necessarily mean cancellation, but it could alter tone, scope, or expansion plans. Historically, new ownership sometimes leads to increased franchise integration, and this is definitely a good thing because there's so much unexplored Harry Potter content in the way of prequels, origin stories, etc. If Paramount views Harry Potter as a long-term growth pillar, they may explore companion series, expanded universe content, or accelerated spin-off development. Basically, the series itself is very unlikely to disappear. But the long-term strategy surrounding it could evolve depending on how aggressively Paramount chooses to leverage the Wizarding World. And beyond television, there is another major pillar of the franchise that would also fall under new ownership: video games. In addition to films and television, the Harry Potter franchise has become a major player in the gaming space, and that's another area likely to be affected by a corporate shift in ownership. The most successful recent Harry Potter-related game is of course Hogwarts Legacy, developed by Portkey Games under Warner Bros. Hogwarts Legacy was a commercial hit, generating over $1 billion in revenue, making it one of the most successful video games associated with a media franchise in years. It also slapped. And with that kind of performance, any new corporate owner would view game development as a high-priority revenue stream. According to industry chatter circulating online, a direct sequel to Hogwarts Legacy is already in development. And what's significant about this sequel is that it's reported to be designed to tie into the upcoming Harry Potter TV series, aligning the game's narrative with elements from the show. Some reports suggest that developers are aiming for a coordinated release window around 2027, roughly coinciding with the anticipated launch of the first season. A staggered rollout, releasing the game sequel around the same time as the TV series, could significantly boost audience engagement across mediums. And this might explain why Paramount is particularly motivated to retain Warner Bros.' current development slate rather than reboot or cancel projects, because they have revenue-generating products already in motion. If this acquisition goes through, Harry Potter shifts under new corporate ownership, but not new creative ownership. The HBO series is already in production, a Hogwarts Legacy sequel appears to be in development, and Rowling's contractual approval rights remain in place. None of that changes overnight, but what does change is incentive. Paramount would now control one of the most valuable franchises in modern entertainment, and that almost certainly means expansion. Which of course means there's probably a lot of new Harry Potter content on the horizon. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live.